Hello and welcome to the history of Star Wars. Today's episode, the Death Star, or the DS-1 Orbital Battle Station. And here we go. The DS-1 Orbital Battle Station, better known as the Death Star or the Death Star 1, and known to the Republic as the Imperial Planetary Ore Extractor, was a massive Imperial battle station / superweapon with a diameter of 120 kilometers. Designed to enforce law and order throughout the Empire with the threat of planetary destruction. It started off as a Separatist Ultimate Weapon before becoming the Expeditionary Battle Planetoid Development Initiative, or Project Death Star. After it ceased to be a Separatist project and became an Imperial one in 19 BBY, the Death Star was destroyed by Luke Skywalker during the Battle of Yavin in 0 BBY. The basic structure of the station was a sphere the size of a small Class 4 moon, with a diameter-wide trench containing docking bays running around its equator. It was the very incarnation of the Tarkin Doctrine. Because of its size and shape, sometimes it was mistaken for a small moon. The first Death Star, like its successor, was divided into two hemispheres, each subdivided into 12 bridge control zones. The northern hemisphere held the main armament of the station, a fearsome superlaser. This weapon had the external appearance of a bowl many kilometers wide. When activated, 8 separate beams were each activated by a crystal through the particle accelerator tubes, amplified through rings, and conjoined to form one of 8 separate beams that would converge outside the disk, focusing into a point to form a single incredibly powerful super beam laser. The power settings of the super laser were adjustable, allowing for the destruction of naval vessels and planets alike. Blasts with the power to destroy naval vessels could be fired roughly once every minute, while the planet-destroying blasts could only be fired once per day. This super laser was powerful enough to destroy even a shielded planet with a single shot. The Death Star was said to comprise 84 separate internal levels, stacked south to north. Each level was separated into 257 sublevels. A nominal number of sublevels were then stacked around the surface of the sphere, encompassing the interstacked levels. A number of the Death Star's docking bays were reserved as executive docking bays for higher-ranking personnel, featuring larger facilities and more significant defenses. Facilities including parks, shops, and other amenities for human crew, as well as numerous infrastructure necessities such as trash compactors. The entire hull of the planet was covered in quantum steel. The battle station had 2 massive sublight engines in the midsection and a formidable hyperdrive system, driven by 123 individual generators tied to one navigational matrix. The Class 4 hyperdrive was fast enough to allow the Death Star to travel thousands of light years from Alderaan to Yavin 4 in only a few hours. All engineers working near the highly radioactive engines wore radiation suits to minimize harmful exposure. Near the northern pole, a 100-meter tower was constructed and shielded near invincibility for the Emperor to use as personal quarters while on board. Operational command of the space station took place from the overbridge, which included the conference room. A high-speed shuttle system was reserved for officers to traverse the station quickly. The Death Star's design included a small but significant flaw: an exposed thermal exhaust port. At one point in the construction process, this exhaust port was identified as unnecessary. When the architect responsible for the area asked the Wookiee overseeing construction of the area to admit the port, he insisted on getting the amendment to the plans in writing. Before the architect had a chance to submit such an amendment, the Wookiee became ill and was confined to the med center, and his replacement built the port as specified in the plans. The port was 2 meters wide, approximately the size of a womp rat, and lay at the end of a large trench in the hull of the battle station, and was ray-shielded against energy weapons such as laser cannons. As impressive as the Death Star's design was, its armament and defensive measures were also extensive. Its primary weapon was its concave dish composite beam superlaser. Although Tarkin had originally intended for the Death Star's weapon to rock a world to its core, the final superlaser design was capable of shattering worlds, leaving behind only asteroid ruins. The entirety of the Death Star's spherical design, included the majority of its interior volume, was dedicated to the support and maintenance of the superlaser. The diameter of the superlaser cannon was approximately 35 kilometers. The energy for the superweapon originated from deep within the battle station and was channeled into an array of 8 interior laser cannons. The 8 laser cannons, via tributary beams, then converged into a central nexus point above the cannon well to form a single powerful beam. The superlaser likewise required 8 superlaser firing stations, 4 primary stations plus 4 backup in case one of the stations failed. The superlaser was dangerous even to itself, so various safeguards were implemented to prevent the battle station from being consumed by its own power. Focusing coils also lined the tributary shafts to maintain the beam's integrity. The tributary beams had to be perfectly calibrated and aligned, otherwise the central beam would be misfocused and dissipate, resulting in a flurry of backscatter that could severely damage or even destroy the superlaser housing. The firing process generated the magnetic fields and gravitational flux, necessitating their dissipation to prevent the amplification crystals from becoming misaligned and the battle station from tearing apart. A downside to the presence of the superlaser was that the Death Star had to forego all but the most rudimentary shielding capabilities in order to achieve such destructive power. However, its surface-to-air defenses were sufficient to make up for its lack of efficient shielding. It possessed 5,000 Tam and Bach XX-9 heavy turbolasers, 2,500 Borsec Galactic Defense M1 ion cannons, 2,500 Borsec Galactic Defense SB-920 laser cannons, and 5,000 Tamenbach D6 turbo laser batteries that acted as its surface-to-air missiles. The SB-920 batteries were largely congregated around the Death Star's trenches and were powerful enough to destroy starfighters with a single shot, and utilized an advanced targeting, acquisition, and targeting system similar to that to certain Imperial surface-to-air defense systems. The XX-9 heavy turbolasers used on the Death Star were variants that had 4 sections that were overall larger, to ensure that the turrets didn't cause friendly fire, and to deject hijackers from attacking their posts. A safety mechanism automatically locked them up when any part of the Death Star was within their sights, making them disadvantageous against starfighters. Besides defense, the turbo laser batteries acted as directional markers for the TIE fighter pilots. Shield projection towers on the Death Star's surface emitted energy fields that covered the Death Star's city sprawls, protecting them from space debris as well as providing limited defense against energy weapons. Due to most of the Death Star's energy reserves being harnessed for the superlaser, at least 3 shield projection towers were necessary for the city sprawl, with their power cells, machinery, and shield operation stations located at the base of the towers. In addition, they were highly concentrated around the tower containing the Emperor's throne room, for obvious reasons. Shield operations fell under the jurisdiction of the battle station operations, with various officers, operators, and technicians tasked with manning the shield projection tower stations to ensure that the shields were always in full working order. During battle, the shields of the neighboring sprawls would overlap to create a continuous blanket of energy over the surface. The battle station also had field generators, which included a jamming field that affected every sensor of an enemy ship except sight, and could create distortion potent enough to reduce the maneuverability of starfighters to less than 0.3, at least along the Meridian Trench. The Death Star's hull plating was made of military-grade quantum steel, most of which had been drawn and processed from asteroidal metal. Because of the challenges of not only creating the material necessary, but also producing enough of it to install the plating into the station, several sections of the Death Star were pressurized during the installation of the hull for efficiency purposes, such as storage space for supplies during the construction, as well as temporary housing for laborers. The Death Star's hull, from a distance, appeared relatively smooth to the naked eye. Aside from the outer defenses and armaments on the surface of the station, the inner areas of the station also provided a significant amount of security measures as well, including metallic spikes, Blast Tech Class 6 automated laser projectors, which were linked to security cameras, and ITO interrogator droids, which sometimes acted as defensive systems against intruders. It also had access to 11,000 combat vessels, as well as more than 7,000 TIE fighters, shuttles, and other crafts. Overall, the Death Star's firepower was such that Jan Dodana speculated that it had rivaled half the Imperial Navy. Hey, thank you for watching the history of Star Wars. Special thanks to Wikipedia and all its contributors for all information you heard today. Very special thanks to my Patreons. And to Royalty Free Tube for this fantastic background. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. These things really help the channel grow. Thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye!